In this video, we are going to build a dashboard showing month-to-date sales by salesperson and also year-to-date sales by salesperson. Now you could visualize this a number of different ways. You could probably do a pivot table or some different types of charts. I'm going to do one way on the dashboard, but I think the important thing is looking at the generic inquiry. This is just one way that you might do it using a generic inquiry, and then you can layer whatever type of visualization layer that you would like on top of it. So let's take a look here at this generic inquiry that I built. You can see I've got three tables: the AR invoice, AR tran, and salesperson. I'm relating them together like this: AR tran to the AR invoice based on the type and the ref number, then the AR invoice to the salesperson based on the salesperson ID. For my example, because my data is really old, I used a parameter. Now if you wanted to use just today's date, you could use just the today formula, but for me to get some meaningful data in my data set, I used a parameter and I set it to a default value of October 15, 2014. I also put a condition in here, just making sure the salesperson ID is not null. I actually did have this condition in here to only look at invoice document types, but the SQL that got generated by the generic inquiry was bad, and sometimes that happens, so I took it out. You can see I deactivated it. Then I sorted it by invoice date, and then on the results grid here, here's my two key formulas. So what I did here is showing the doc date, the salesperson name. I'm showing the amount of the invoice line. I'm just grabbing the extended price. And then for my month-to-date amount, here's the formula that I'm using. It's a real long formula, but basically it's saying I want to make sure that the year of the invoice is equal to the year of my parameter. Now here's where you could replace this with today if you wanted to, but I'll leave it as my parameter because of my data. Then I also want to make sure that the month of the invoice is equal to the month of my parameter. And then the day, I want to make sure that it's less than or equal to the day of my parameter. So if I run it mid-month, I only want to pick up all of the invoices on or before the day that I ran, the day of my parameter. So I click OK here. So that's my month-to-date formula. Year-to-date is basically the same thing, but just a little more tricky. So first, I'm making sure that the year is equal to the year of the parameter. Then I'm doing an and an or. So this part is the first part of the or. So it's an either or. Either the month of the invoice is less than the month of my parameter, or the month of the invoice is equal to the month of my parameter. And if it is, then I'm going to check the day and make sure the day is less than or equal to the day of my parameter. And then in my if statements, either I'm returning the amount or I'm returning 0. And that's how we're going to get it to sum up and do a month-to-date and year-to-date calculation. So if we were to take a look at this generic inquiry before we go to the dashboard, you can see this parameter is defaulting to October 15th. But let's sort of test it out. If I backdate this maybe to February 15th, you'll see both the month-to-date numbers and year-to-date numbers go to 0 because my first data is on March 1st. If I change this to March 1st, you'll see that both my month-to-date numbers and year-to-date numbers get calculated. If I were to change this to maybe April 1st, my month-to-date number now goes to 0 because it's only calculating April data, but my year-to-date numbers stay because I'm after March 1st. Then if we tab through, maybe take a look at another example here in August, you can see if I go to August 15th, I get 0 and 0. If I go to August 19th, because I've reached that right day in the month, then I get the numbers here. If I were to go to September 1st, you can see the August number goes to 0. The September 1st number goes to 500 for the month-to-date. After that, it's still 0 because I haven't reached that day. But my year-to-date numbers total up. So I think this is doing what I want it to do. And now we need to go put a dashboard on top of it. So I already have one open here, and you can see what I added on the bottom is I added a sales month to date by salesperson. And if we take a look at this, all I'm doing is pointing to the generic inquiry that I just created. I'm allowing it to use the default parameter date. Again, this could be today's date, but I'm backdating because of my data. And then when I come into configure, or I put a caption there, if I come into configure, I did a bar chart. I'm showing it by salesperson, and then I'm summing up the amount month to date number. Then for the other chart down here, it's the same exact thing. The only difference, I have a different caption, and then I'm summing up the amount year to date number. And we can double check these. So this should be running at October, forgot already, I think it was October 20th. Let's double check that. October 15th actually. So if I come back here and maybe drill in on J Parker, see J Parker has 276,516. So if I drill in, it opens up a new tab. So that's my month to date number. So for October 15th, let's actually just do this. Let's look at only numbers greater than 0. So it should be these numbers right here. Let's pull up the calculator and add them up. There's my 276,516. So it seems to be doing it correctly. The only thing with this particular way of visualizing it that I don't like is I don't get to control the largest numbers. So this is 300,000, but if I look at the year to date, because they're larger numbers, this is actually 500,000. And I think it's a little deceiving because it looks like, if I'm looking at them both, it looks like J Parker is doing more sales just in the month than Theo has been doing all year. But the only reason is because the scale is different. So this is actually 408,000, which is more than the 276,000. So not the greatest with this visualization. But again, I think the important thing is getting that generic inquiry built. Then maybe you do a pivot table on top or do some other type of visualization. This is just one example.